has been shortened for this session, so I will skip through most of the slides, but I would like to highlight the key messages that I've been asked to speak on. In addition to that, let me just also say that the Joint Secretary just mentioned that this is the tip of the iceberg, and that's basically what the presentation is going to be focusing on, because this is a subject which is sustainable post-disaster recovery and reconstruction, which is so vast that it would really require many days to present. And I'm serious about this. I'm not in any way being sarcastic or making a lighter comment. This does require a very long time to speak about. So please excuse me if I rush through some of the slides, because the idea is to just give you an overarching perspective of disaster recovery and reconstruction and how it needs to be made resilient and sustainable. Just as a way of introduction, my name is Raja Rehan Arshad, and I've been working in disaster risk management for the last almost 2 decades. And I used to be with the World Bank, and I just recently took early retirement. And I'm really fortunate to be here after having worked in disaster contexts all over the world. Next, please. Next slide. So while they are fixing the slide deck, okay, we have it here. This is a graph which I'm sure all of you have seen. It's an infographic which was produced by FEMA a long time back. But it's important to show how this graph has, over the years, been modified to focus on the time when the disaster happens, and after the disaster, some key milestones that need to be kept in mind for resilient and sustainable recovery. One is that this old practice of starting the post-disaster needs assessment after the relief phase was over, this is something which has not been done away with, and post-disaster needs assessments now happen in parallel to the relief phase, and it's extremely important that the post-disaster needs assessments happen as soon as possible, overlapping the relief phase, because we all know that recovery starts from the very moment the disaster ends. People start recovering their lives, people start recovering their shelters, and people start recovering their ways of surviving, and that is something which needs to be kept in mind, and that cannot wait for a PDNA to be conducted months after the disaster. And immediately following the PDNA, there is the recovery framework that over the last almost 10 years has become a standard practice. The disaster recovery framework is something for which there was a felt need, and it really helps to translate the PDNA, which is conducted in a very rapid manner, into a recovery plan. And this is what the point I would like to highlight, because I will be coming back to the disaster recovery framework again and expanding on it as a prerequisite for resilient and sustainable recovery. Next slide, please. Again, as I mentioned just now, this slide also shows the essential assessments that are needed, and there are times when some governments, because it's the government that leads these assessments in the country where a disaster has happened, governments try to avoid getting into these assessments, or they generally take them very lightly. It's important that the post-disaster needs assessment is done in a very rapid manner, covering most of the sectors of the economy, and then the disaster recovery framework is prepared in as quick a manner. The difference between these two is that the PDNA is a one-off assessment, and the recovery framework is a living document, and it can be revised, improved upon, and further detailed as and when the retail sector assessments happen, and of course as the situation changes on the ground and resources are also available. Next slide, please. So towards resilient recovery, why is resilient recovery important? In this context, it's important to say that this is a disaster, although it's something which destroys the economy, destroys livelihoods. Of course, there are fatalities and also casualties. It destroys homes and crops, etc. And we've seen that happen in the last 3-4 months during the floods. But it's an adversity which needs to be converted into an opportunity. If it does not happen, it's an opportunity missed. And if we do not make the recovery and reconstruction resilient and we do not mainstream disaster risk reduction, we get into a situation where after the 2010 floods, we had the 2022 floods, and the scale of the flooding was even more than 2010. And this could have been avoided. And a message that I delivered day before yesterday, and I'll just quickly repeat it, that hazards are natural, disasters are unnatural. Disasters are man-made. And whenever we hear the term natural disasters, that's a misnomer. Because hazards are something which are geotechnical or hydrometeorological, and of course, one can't fight against them, fight against Mother Nature, as was mentioned by one of the speakers the other day. But disasters are something that can be managed. The impact of the disaster is something which can be mitigated, which can be reduced, and that's why in fact, there was a publication back in 2014, which it was issued by the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery in the World Bank. The title of that publication is Natural Hazards, Unnatural Disasters. And it's economically been proven that disasters are man-made. So there is a need to convert adversity into an opportunity so that operational reforms can be introduced which focus on mainstream disaster risk reduction and resilience, but not major reforms, because there is this sense that in the recovery process, major legislation should be done, major institutional changes should be made. That's not the right time. People would like the state to restore their shelter, their livelihoods, their food security as urgently as possible. So it's not the right time to hold their demands hostage just because you want to introduce reforms. The second is prioritizing people-centered socio-economic recovery. Over the years, it's been seen that people-centered socio-economic recovery should really be done in the immediate and short term, within a year, 15 months at the maximum. And early recovery is part of this, but this is where the focus should be. And it's important because the prioritization that needs to be done of the recovery efforts in a multi-sectoral manner needs to focus on this phase of recovery and reconstruction. Building back better is something that all of us have heard about. It's a term that is freely used, and I'll come back to this 3-4 slides later. It's a term freely used, but it's also a term that is generally not understood in its entirety. The focus is very much on the structural elements of Build Back Better, the brick and mortar part, not on the software elements or the non-structural elements. Right sizing and right siting is a very important part of Build Back Better, and I'll come back to that later. Resilient to natural climate change. The recovery should be resilient to natural hazards, climate change, and other shocks and stresses. Again, I made this point the other day in my comments that we are focusing a lot on climate resilience, which is very appropriate. It is a priority nowadays because of the climate change. And of course, 2022 floods have shown us why it's so important to focus on climate resilience. But climate change is not the only shock that plays out on a day-by-day basis in the lives of people, in habitats, in the environment, in the ecosystem. There are so many other shocks that are playing out: economic, financial, societal, security, service delivery related, governance related, environmental, health. COVID-19 is a very good example. These stresses and shocks need to be factored in while looking at climate change and climate resilience, so that we don't isolate these different shocks and stresses. And the urban environment is a very good example where we have to look at all these different shocks and stresses in a holistic manner. The other thing is that recovery and reconstruction should be planned in an outcome-based manner. And this takes us away from the very sectoral approach that has been the practice and still is the practice. Each ministry, each line department focuses only on its own sector. But that is not the way to ensure sustainable recovery and reconstruction. And there is a need for extensive consultations with all stakeholders to determine the the priorities. It has to be an inclusive process. And then there is a need for partnerships with a range of stakeholders. These partnerships need to be initiated by the public sector with NGOs, INGOs, civil society, academia, think tanks, private sector, and etc., philanthropists. But this is something that needs to be done, otherwise the recovery effort is not efficient and not effective, and of course it's not sustainable. And finally, there's a need for uniformity to policies for overall recovery and reconstruction. And I'll come back to this shortly. Next slide, please. Some core principles of Build Back Better. We are all familiar with them. Do no harm, learn from the past, and avoid unnecessary damage to future recovery. Agencies must be accountable to the people for that they are assisting as part of the recovery process. The people who are affected by the disaster, they are the ones who are the decision makers. They need to be empowered to recover from the effects of the disaster. And this can only be done if the enabling environment can be created for this. Recovery of local economy and livelihoods must be a priority, and based on the 2010-22 floods, and I've been part of the post-disaster needs assessment and now the recovery framework, the focus on shelter, on agriculture for food security, and on livelihoods is a priority. And this just highlights the point I'm trying to make. And of course, recovery and reconstruction should recognize diversity, and we are all familiar with the diversity challenges that we are confronted with in normal development situations. So recovery and reconstruction should be focusing more on these. And communities should be allowed to use their own resources wherever possible. And housing is a very good example. And reconstruction must take account of future hazards and risks. And these should be holistic, not just looking at natural hazards. Next slide, please. So I'll quickly go over the Build Back Better framework. Building back stronger is one part of the Building Back Better framework. And this, of course, reduces well-being losses by ensuring that reconstructed infrastructure can resist more intense events in the future. So this is the structural part, the brick and mortar part. The second one, which generally is not given enough importance, is building back more inclusively. Ensures that post-disaster support reaches all affected population groups, especially the most vulnerable and the ones who are the most exposed and are consequently at high risk. This emphasizes the importance of providing reconstruction support to low-income households, which are typically more exposed, more vulnerable, and less comprehensively supported. Because they're marginalized, they generally get overlooked. The third is building back faster. This is where even now the debate that is happening after the 2022 floods on recovery and reconstruction is looking at business as usual. The institutional arrangements that are being thought about are basically the ones that are responsible for the development agenda. And we know the kind of inertia that sets in these kind of procedures. And building back better has to be done faster. It has to be done in an emergency mode. It has to be treated as an urgent effort. Next slide, please. I won't go through these details because I think in the interest of time, but this is where just giving examples of building back better in infrastructure, which is the brick and mortar part, how it ensures stronger, safer, and more disaster resilient infrastructure systems. We can talk about improving hazard control infrastructure such as flood embankments, and the flood 2022 is a very good example where this needs to be done. But also using recovery as an opportunity to right size and right site. Right size is if there was a school which was a primary school, but the catchment area now demands a middle school or a high school, then the reconstruction should look at right sizing it and upgrading it to a middle or a high school. Right siting basically means if, to start off with, the location of the school or the health facility was wrongly selected for various reasons and it's hardly used, do not reconstruct it in the same place. Relocate it to a place where, of course, it can be accessed and makes more sense for it. Next, please. Building back better in livelihood recovery. These are the software elements that I was talking about. It ensures resilience in the employment and livelihood sector by using recovery as an opportunity to promote disaster-resilient livelihoods. Just to give you an example, promoting resilient agriculture and livestock. For example, communities in Bangladesh, they were, as you know, Bangladesh is affected by floods every year, and this has been going on for decades. But they have now come to live with it. They have adapted to it. They don't have any place to relocate. So one of the things they used to do was they had chickens for, of course, the meat and for the eggs. But chickens can't swim, and they used to die in the floods. So over the years, they have adapted to the situation, and they now keep ducks, because ducks can swim, and they also give meat, and they also give eggs. This is the adaptation that happens, and people learn from. People are the best learners. But just to give you an idea that this is where Build Back Better is important on the software elements as well. Next slide, please. Building back better in cross-cutting issues. Again, environment, gender, governance, extremely important areas, but generally get overshadowed. And that's why in the post-disaster need assessment, these have now become explicit sectors which get enough importance in parallel to the other physical sectors. I don't want to go through these in detail, but just to highlight, especially the gender one, providing gender-specific support for reconstruction and recovery so that the different needs of women and men are met through recovery. Next slide, please. Just on the Pakistan 2022 floods, these are the 17 sectors that we looked at, and as you can see, some of these softer sectors are explicitly studied and assessed as part of the post-disaster needs assessment. And the most important at the bottom, the human impact assessment, which is now being done in addition to the macroeconomic impact assessment. Next slide, please. So the disaster recovery framework, as I mentioned earlier, is a living document, an extremely important document, which is a prerequisite for resilient and sustainable recovery, because without this, recovery planning cannot be done in a prioritized, sequenced, integrated, multi-sectoral, multi-spatial, multi-institutional manner. And that's why this is the framework that should really be prepared. And we are right now, the government is working on developing the disaster recovery framework, which is called the 4RF. It's the Resilient Recovery, Rehabilitation, Reconstruction Framework. That's what the government is calling it. It's the document that the government plans to present in the donor conference that's potentially going to be held in the second week of January. It is outcome-based recovery plan. It's a practical sequence and prioritized program to plan, finance, implement, and monitor. It sets out the strategic recovery objective and how various sectors can contribute to those. Integrated programmatic approach across sectors, and recovery framework includes the policy framework, the institutional arrangements, the recovery financing arrangements, and implementation and monitoring arrangements. Next slide, please. I'll just skip through some of the slides because I know I'm running out of time. Please, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Please keep on going and I'll stop you. I just want to come to the housing sector for just a few slides. Next, please. This presentation will be available to you, so you can just please stop here. Housing reconstruction. Just to the point that we made the day before yesterday also, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from our panelists, the post-2005 earthquake recovery effort is considered one of the most successful recovery efforts globally in the last couple of decades, or since the tsunami of 2004. And the housing reconstruction component of that recovery effort is considered a best practice. I won't say a good practice, it's considered the best practice. And the reason for that is that it was owner-driven, it was an assisted and inspected reconstruction and restoration regime. It ensured resilience, seismic resilience at that time. It ensured uniform policies and assistance packages across all funding sources. So irrespective of the source of funding, whether it was off budget coming from bilateral donors through NGOs, INGOs, or whether it was coming from the government or IFIs, international financing institutions, all the funding was virtually put into a single funnel so that it could finance the $1.5 billion housing reconstruction program for reconstructing and repairing 600,000 houses in altitude up to 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters. And it ensured judicious use of grants. There were uniform amounts that were given as a subsidy for a core unit. And we'll hear about this today, how some great initiatives are being implemented after the floods in different parts by some of our panelists and other such initiatives. But that uniform policy is not there. That uniformity, that virtual single funnel approach is not there. And this is what we saw after the 2010 floods. That uniformity of policy and strategy wasn't there. As a result, in the same district, in the same union council, different levels of subsidy were being given, different approaches were being practiced. And that is why the whole housing recovery program became fragmented. And it was, unfortunately, after a very successful housing recovery program following the earthquake, in 2010 it was not a very good housing recovery program. Next slide, please. Some key aspects. Implementing agency and institutional arrangements are very important for a housing reconstruction program. You can't leave it to the small initiatives. They'll do a great job, but they'll only be able to cover an iota of the entire need, which is close to 2 million houses, as we know, which have been damaged or destroyed. So there has to be a programmatic approach towards this, so that these small islands of success, they can show the way to the government, which is the main implementer, and how it can be done in a much more resilient and cost-effective and sustainable manner. And it has to be based on an eligibility criteria, which is the uniform eligibility criteria, so that you don't have the vulnerable or the marginalized groups drop out of this program. Next slide, please. There has to be political support, institutional arrangements, detailed house-to-house damage assessment, financing for the full program. You can't have partially financed program, because that then leaves most of them who don't get the assistance, and it leaves a lot of heartburning and resentment. Resilient technical designs, assisted and inspected. Training hubs need to be there so that training can be done, and this is where NGOs, even UN organizations, did a great job after the 2005 earthquake. And finally, material hubs need to be created so that the material, low-cost material or some new material which is environmentally friendly, which is green, can be provided at the doorsteps of the people who are going to reconstruct their homes. Let me stop here. There are some other slides also, but thank you so much for your attention, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for a very informative presentation and highlighting the key interventions required for the resilient recovery. Without any delay, we will move towards our panel discussion, and I will take the opportunity to introduce our honorable panelist and the moderator. So on the very left to me, Mr. Zahid Naseem Khattak is sitting, who will moderate the session. He is the HLP expert and working in this area of disaster risk management and HLP for more than 2 decades. Next to him is sitting Mr. Javed Ali Khan, who is the Habitat Program Manager of UN Habitat, and he has served with the Ministry of Climate Change also for over 30 years, and retired as Director General of Ministry of Climate Change, and he remained national focal point for several environment and climate change treaties and conventions, as well as served as Project Director for many GEF projects. Next to him is sitting Ms. Miu Sato, who is the Chief of Mission, International Organization for Migration, Pakistan office. She has worked in IOM office since 2001 in Kenya, Belgium, Indonesia, Iraq, Afghanistan, and also in Japan. So she has vast experience of working with the migrants and understand the post-disaster challenges faced by the affectees in disaster and conflict situations. So welcome, ma'am. So next to him is sitting Miss Maggie Stephenson. She is the recovery advisor and currently working in UNOPS. She is working in the field for more than 2 decades and has worked in architecture and planning education, housing and development, and post-disaster reconstruction and recovery for governments, United Nations, non-profits, and in the private sector. From 2005 to 2010, she worked with UN Habitat, ERA, and National Disaster Risk Management Authority. So welcome to Maggie. Next to her is sitting Mr. Shahid Saeed, who is CEO of Indus Earth Trust. He is the qualified architect and the CEO and founder of poverty alleviation NGO Indus Earth Trust, Pakistan. He is specialist in the use of indigenous materials in building structures and has trained the world leaders for building resilience in the housing sector. So, welcome, sir. Next to him is sitting Ms. Nusrat Nasab. Ms. Nusrat Nasab is CEO of Aga Khan Agency for Habitat and has been working in the field of development and disaster risk management for over 2 decades. Currently, she is, as I already mentioned, she is the CEO of the Aga Khan Agency for Habitat, and she has authored several papers, including the chapter on disaster risk reduction and building resilience in the Hindu Kush Himalaya in the book of Hindu Kush Himalaya Assessment. Welcome, ma'am. So without any delay, I will give the floor to Mr. Zahid Naseem Khattab to start the panel discussion.
Thank you, Faika. Distinguished guests, lead panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and assalamu alaikum. As Joint Secretary Saab said that we are short of time, so I will not talk much about the pleasantries. I'll directly go to ask questions from our elite panelists. Especially, I will once again request Raja Rehan Saab, though he spoke a lot. I think he must be tired, but still I have 2 questions, then I'll forget about them. Sir, my first question, you actually skipped that. It was in your presentation, but you skipped it because of the time constraints. My question is, sir, how do you think that flood recovery is an opportunity to future-proof the built environment, housing in particular? Sir, one question, and then followed by, crisis present many opportunities. What do you think makes the difference between opportunities realized and opportunities missed, sir?
You're absolutely right. I was going to talk about these 2 points, and in the interest of time, I just skipped over them. The first one is about the kind of how can you make the built environment, especially housing, foolproof against any kind of hazard. First of all, let me just say that you cannot do that. There is no such thing as making the built environment foolproof, because it's not cost effective. The only structures that are foolproof, and we can call them safe, are nuclear power plants, because you cannot afford to have those nuclear power plants fail in the event of any natural hazard, especially an earthquake or a tsunami, as we've seen in the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami. So we need to refer to it as resilient built environment and resilient housing. And for that to happen, it's extremely important that we use these adversities as an opportunity. We all gathered here after the flooding, which is unprecedented in the country, and this is the time to strike when the iron is hot, because we have the attention of all the key players, the key policy makers, the decision makers, the different parts of the state, and the whole range of stakeholders in the non-public sector. This is the time to make sure that the right measures are taken to mainstream resilience in the recovery effort. And as a result of that, piggyback that or dovetail that by different kinds of laws and rules which can mainstream disaster risk reduction and climate resilience in the development agenda. So that's why we say humanitarian efforts, recovery, and development nexus is part of the same continuum. We cannot deal with these 3 different phases separately. So that's the response to the first question. The second is opportunities realized and opportunities missed. Let me put it this way, that opportunities realized after the 2005 earthquake, the artisans who were trained for resilient housing reconstruction, and we have some colleagues from AJK who who were part and parcel of this, and Maggie, of course, was also part and parcel of this. Those artisans were critical to support the homeowners in reconstructing resilient homes. But the same trained artisans, after the housing recovery effort, continued to ensure that new housing construction was already also being done in a resilient manner. So that's an opportunity realized. Opportunities missed. After the 2010 floods, the federal government, because of the 18th Amendment, it, of course, gave all the resources to the provincial governments and the sub-provincial governments, and they then implemented the recovery efforts. But that also, in some ways, fragmented the whole recovery effort. Especially if you look at housing, it was such a fragmented approach towards housing that housing was not done in a sustainable and resilient manner, because each province, and within each province, each district, and even down to the unit council and village level, housing reconstruction was done in a different manner. That's an opportunity lost. So let me just stop there.
Can I ask you one more question, sir, if you don't mind? Because you did mention it in the presentation about the reforms, but didn't explain it more. Can you please just elaborate the reform? We call it 4 hours, and I think with this there must be 5 hours.
So the 4RF now stands for Resilient Recovery, Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Framework, which is just a name, a specific name given to the disaster recovery framework that the Ministry of Planning, Development and Special Initiatives is leading. And the 4 development partners, Asian Development Bank, European Union, United Nations and World Bank are supporting the government in preparing this. It will be finalized in the next 2 or 3 days. The term reform was originally suggested to be part of this, and these reforms, as I mentioned earlier, are operational reforms, are procedural reforms that need to be in place to ensure fast-track recovery. Let me give you a simple example. PEPRA rules, which is the procurement rules in Pakistan, they allow for expedited procurement, but our implementing agencies, ministries and technical departments, line departments, they are reticent to use these rules because of the fear of accountability. But you cannot afford to not use these rules in such an emergency, because the more you delay the whole planning and PC1 approval process and then the financing and budgeting and then the procurement, contracting, the more recovery is delayed. So it's just like justice delayed is justice denied. It's recovery delayed, it's recovery denied. And that's why these operational and procedural and reforms are extremely important to be introduced as part of the recovery effort.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you very much. My next question will be just, I'm linking Ms. Nusran Saab's day before yesterday's discussion when we were talking about climate resilient housing. You very well mentioned about the community participation in it. You very well mentioned about the gender participation, especially women participation in decision making and in the policy making. My question is for today, what are the benefits and challenges for communities from different parts of the country to share their learning and experiences of disasters and recovery? And the second question is, there are many excellent but small-scale initiatives in Pakistan. You very well mentioned about your initiative in Gilgit day before yesterday as well. How do you think your work and thinking can reach a large-scale impact in the country?
Thank you so much. It's a very important question, and building on the very insightful keynote speech, I would say the communities in particular, especially in the rural context, I think they are more shaping, their role is more important in terms of, because things are happening haphazard.
Exactly.
Whereas in the urban context, a little bit, I would say, plan is in place, but the implementation, it goes in silos maybe. So I would really emphasize what we have learned from the past experience. It is about planning. Planning well, and especially the process, be it response or recovery or reconstruction, the coordination, it is highly important. And looking at the learning or the challenges itself, uh, there are frequency and the intensity of certain, climatic events. It's like on the trend, if you look at it. So I don't know, why we are reinventing the wheel, why we are not learning from the past. For example, housing. I really don't understand why any institution, any government, I would say, sector, why we are not coming up with the design, with the option for people that these are the few options with this much resources that it may, cost. So we just review it for the situation and then go for implementation. It takes a long time. Every time we go to design and elaboration on certain. So sometimes I don't understand why we have to go to certain process. The participatory approach or the ownership itself of the beneficiary, I think it's really important that we include them in there. And finally, it's not about the communities. They are at the giver side. They have to be part of the process. They have to take the ownership, and especially the livelihood options you mentioned. I think when the community is involved in the whole process of recovery and rehab, they feel more confident. They're bouncing back, a period. It becomes really fast, and there are some technical benefit also, like artisans. Those are in the communities, right? So if we engage, let's say, the neighborhood even, and they have to link the whole process with the cultural aspect also. So it gives it a more, ownership and the fast track in terms of not only, because for fast track you need resources, as well as you need a clear vision. You have when I say resources, it's both financial as well as technical resources. So these are certain areas where we can, and when I mentioned about the point of not reinventing the wheel, I really mean to say that there are organizations who have expertise. Even within the government sector, if there is, an expertise which can be just replicated, I think there is no harm in doing a replication, and maybe you can modify it according to the context and the need. And same goes for regional aspect, because disaster, it has no boundaries. So there are similar terrain in other countries. So what has worked in the other countries, it has to be replicated. That's how we can make it more resilient. That's how we can make it more safe, and that's how we can make it more, towards the fast recovery and relief. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, and thank you for linking this missing gap, like Dr. Rehan Sahab also very well mentioned about the memory loss, or I can say institutional memory loss after 2005 earthquake recovery, which was, like very well mentioned, that was a success. But then after the 2010 floods, I should not use the word that it became a disaster, but it was a disaster in a way because of some capacity issues at the provincial level. And you very well mentioned that we should not invent a wheel every time when it occurs. Instead of, we should be just learning from our past experiences and our past strengths and capacities, which were very well and developed during that time. Thank you very much, ma'am. My next question will be Shahid Saeed Khan Sahab. Sir, what do you think, can be the role of the local NGOs and academia and the private sector to support recovery? And what challenges do they face? And what role might they play in housing and urban development, sir?
NGOs are very important in the sense that they are the ones that are on the ground and they are the ones that get to know the issues initially. I have been asked at the last moment to perhaps present something else. So if you don't mind, sir, can you put the slides on for me, please?
Please, can you please put on the slides, please?
In the meantime,
That's it.
and I'll go over these very quickly, just to give you an idea, I've been involved in all these disasters. And as Rajesh Saab has said, in fact, everybody is saying in the last 3 days of the conference. Next slide, please. We have come to the conclusion that we need to build something that will last. And my proposals that are going up, next slide please, is to do with, next slides please. I'm going to go through this very quickly. We are now concentrating on what we call compressed earth blocks. Compressed earth blocks requires around about 5 to 6% cement as a binder, but the block itself is stronger in strength than a concrete block. It has better insulation. It has 44% less absorption of moisture, and it is half the price of a concrete block. I use the word concrete because concrete blocks are now being used throughout the country as the material to construct, and this is the rural areas. I'm talking about the rural areas. We have to also consider the use of concrete. Concrete is giving 44% carbon emission globally. We have to think of ways where we can come down to what is being used, the term that is being used, and which is what we work to is zero carbon footprint. Next slide, please. This machine costs $500 and it compresses the blocks by hand. We've trained many communities, both in Sindh and in Balochistan. At this moment in time, we are building, we started a program in Balochistan near Sibi, using these blocks. One of the advantages of this is, well, for us, we train people. We train them how to make these blocks so that they can use that knowledge to build their own houses at a later stage. We built 50 houses in, next slide please, we built 50 houses in, this is a building that has been built. It was built in 2010, funded by the UNDP. And this picture was taken about a month ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago. So you can see the condition of the building. It's standing very well. It is made out of CEB blocks. One thing that you have to remember is that water has to be prevented from affecting the building structure, and therefore we use stone as a plinth. The ones that we are building now, next slide please, the ones that we are building now, the stone plinth is 3 feet high and 1.5 feet below ground. This, in my opinion, will protect the building. Next slide, please. From floods. This is what we are now building. Each house costs about $2,500. And the room size itself is 16 by 14. I mentioned the size because of all the experience that we've had over the years indicates that people in Sindh and Balochistan, I'm not sure about Punjab or the frontier, or the Gilgit-Baltistan, perhaps it's a different requirements over there. These are being built, and they'll take about 3 weeks to build. And they're being built by the community. We're training the community how to build them. We use bamboo as a roof structure, but the main building is made out of the sea roof. Next slide, please. In the floods that came, even now in Sindh, the water is still existing in certain parts. So we built, as you can see, the top bits are the two demonstration structures of a floating house. The floating house was really very important, especially for the women. Women that have been now forced to live on the roads at a high level are being molested, and they feel very insecure. So this floating house the idea was actually mainly for women, that it would come up to the level of the road, and the women would be safer in this. But the structure has been designed in such a way that when the floods recede, the building settles down in the ground and can be made a permanent structure. Next slide, please. And that's it. I think I'd really like to say at this moment in time, learn from the past has been mentioned twice. I'll give you an example of something that was built 3,000 years ago. Bambor. Bambor is in Sindh. And for some time, people have been trying to understand why Bambor wasn't affected by the floods or by the rains. And recently, it's been discovered that there is a piping system that goes underneath the village. And Bambor was built as a trading center. Underneath the city, it was a city at that time, all the water that came from the rains goes into these pipes and goes out into the river next door. Now I think that's amazing. That was 3,000 years ago. People understood that if a flood came, how we could actually mitigate against that. Again, I will repeat that the housing that we are building may seem expensive, and it does to certain donors, but I'm convinced that what we now have to do is to build something that will last 15 to 20 years, so that we don't have to keep coming back to donors to say, can you help us? As we pointed out, sir, that the floods will come again, the rain will come again, and we are quite aware of that. And also in our country, we have to take cognizance of the whole climate change issue and the issues concerning carbon emissions. And plus the fact that what we do is that we have a training program. We teach people how to build. There is no quick fix. There is no government. There is no international organization. There is no national organization that will solve the housing problem of this country. I think it will take years, maybe a decade before it is resolved. We've been trying to resolve it for the last 70 years. But I think the solution, in my opinion, is that we teach the people how to build the houses better. They themselves will resolve the housing problem. And I see there is a secretary who has been coming here for the last 3 days, and I'm very impressed by the fact that his commitment to this housing issue is something that he's spending his time, his valuable time. I mean, his time he must be working overtime when he gets home. I'm very impressed, sir, very impressed. That shows that you have a commitment. And this is the first time I've seen it. I have to admit, after all these years of giving talks, to see the government so committed. Thank you, sir, for being here. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir, and welcome, Secretary Saab. Thank you very much for making it convenient to attend this event, even though it's Saturday morning and winter in Islamabad. It was very difficult for everybody to wake up early and make it convenient to come and share with us their ideas and views. Thank you, sir. But, sir, out of my personal curiosity, I have a question which is Balochistan focused.
Yes.
You are doing a commendable job. You have constructed the houses as well. My own curiosity is that I would like to know the land tenure security in Balochistan. What is the situation there? Because we have some contradictory information coming from the field, which sometimes we cannot even correlate with the other provinces, the issues which they are facing there.
That's a very good question. As you know, sir, the Shamlat system works in Balochistan. I mean, the Shamlat system, for those who don't know, is a community-based system where the community owns the village. And this is a problem with some of the donors that have come to me to say that we can only provide funds for people that actually own the land. Now, this does not apply in Sindh, but certainly in Balochistan, and the village that we're working in, we have come to an agreement with the landowner who, and this will be made legal, that each house and each land under which that house is will belong to the beneficiary for his life, and he will be able to sell that property or sort of pass it down to his next generation. And that is the way that we've got over this particular issue in this particular village, which is called Jalal Khan near Sibi. Perhaps you know the area. But for the rest of Balochistan, it is a problem. And it is a problem that the donors, and in fact the UN Habitat is very concerned about this. One of the Zoom conversations that I had with them was that they are very concerned that if the land is not owned and actually it becomes the ownership of the landlord, the whole purpose of providing housing for the underprivileged is somewhat in jeopardy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. My next question will be from you, if you don't mind. As the UN promotes a right-based approach in disaster recovery, can you tell us what you mean by that? I mean, what does it stands for? Just treat us as laymen to understand this, please.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the question. First, I would like to mention that...
The mic. Your mic is not working.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's now fine.
Thank you very much for the question. First, IOM, International Organization for Migration, UN Migration Agency, we are working to address disaster challenges through the human mobility, displacement angle. Now, IOM has been working as a sector lead for shelter in the humanitarian response. Now, from our experiences, the post-disaster recovery and reconstruction phase is an opportunity not only to avoid but address the factors that influence the disaster impact and to intervene in progressive ways that address underlying housing vulnerabilities and the socioeconomic disadvantages. So all of us, we have to focus on actions to ensure sustainable recovery rooted in resilient ecosystem, safe settlements, and in a shared vision for a more equitable and suitable, stable future. Now, the rights-based approach what we mean here is that basically a conscious and systematic integration of rights and rights principles into the whole steps of the work that we've been doing in the disaster response and also the recovery phase. So it can range from identification of all rights holders and their specific rights to the duty bearers who bear the obligation to respect, protect, and fulfill these rights. So one of the examples is that after the disaster, we do the assessment, the needs assessment for the recovery or the reconstruction. Now, these assessments should include the questions of whether and the extent to which rights are being respected, protected, and fulfilled. So these are the starting point of this rights-based approach. Another example is can cover the intent to work towards the strengthening the capacity of rights holders to enjoy and claim their rights, including their human rights, and for the duty bearers to meet their obligations. So these are some practical example of rights-based approach. And one of the things that, as already mentioned, can be to give explicit consideration to those who face challenges in accessing the housing, land, and property rights before the disasters, such as minority, landless, laborers, women-headed household, and other marginalized groups. So for us, the inclusive approach is the key for the success of this recovery phase, and then also the rights-based approach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mia. Now I'll request Maggie to have tons of questions for her. And I know she has answered to every question, so I will not ask her any question. Instead, I will just request her for her remarks. Please.
It's also warning, I may talk too much, so I wrote something down.
ये देखें, आवाज आ रही है?
No, I don't think so.
No, it's not.
Just
Aika?
tap it on.
Please. This guy is coming.
For those of you that can hear me without the mic, I appreciate that
Ring
the
on.
reference of learning from the past, but I also want to, I think that's a responsibility on all of us that we need to take more seriously and invest in. But I want to talk today about the future.
It is working.
Okay, sorry. There's a lot of talk about PDNA and the recovery framework and the resources required and the investment required. So I want to talk about not just the financial investment, but the investment in people. People are your greatest natural resource, your greatest national resource, if you like. Pakistan, as far as I know, and I come across it every day, has thousands of unemployed and underemployed engineers, architects, planners, quantity surveyors, economists, social scientists, researchers. How can we create opportunities for them to put their considerable expertise and their talents to use to support the flood-affected communities? How can they help to solve issues of drainage, better foundations, to be on the ground, as you say, to work from small business development, to follow migration to cities? There are many topics, and we need manpower, we need brainpower. How might they be part of a large-scale effort so that it's across the thousands of villages, and so that they're not just fragments, but they're part of something that's greater than the sum of the parts? We leave many of them sitting at home or to look for work overseas, and they need opportunities to learn, and there's so much work to do. And I don't just mean young people, but also retired people that are available, that have considerable experience. How are we making the opportunities? This is a historic flood for the country, that many people have no way in, no opportunity to contribute their time, their skills, whether directly there or remotely. So my question really to people in the room is, how can we, this is a historic flood, how can we enable people to be part of history and part of the recovery as history? How to make the recovery happen and the recovery better? Okay. Sorry. Again, we're talking all the time about optimizing resources. I think we need a plan to optimize the human resources that we already have. There are thousands of overstretched community organizations and local authorities that need more technical expertise. How can we match those? Too loud, too quiet?
Yeah, now.
That's better.
So what I'm looking for, I guess, is a network or a to mobilize or a program, because it's not just at the time, it also builds a network for life. It builds contacts that people have, it builds opportunities for them in the future. Young people who were involved in the 2005 earthquake response are now senior officials across provincial government, in development agencies, in NESPAC, in disaster management authorities. And they're coming to those roles with a deep practical understanding and experience of working in disaster-affected communities. Will be working in the future. They'll be the senior people in the future. And with a hands-on experience of climate impacts and disaster, that should help inform their decision-making in future and their infrastructure. There's not enough discussion about future-proofing the built environment during a construction boom, and 80% of it is probable housing. To achieve future-proofing of the built environment, I suggest we need to future-proof built environment professionals.
Yeah, it's okay, fine.
No, it's not working. This is not working.
Isco.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I'm really glad to see Dr. Saroshi in the front row. This is aimed at you. We need to invest in future-proofing our built environment professionals. So we need to revise their education and their training now. As you said, this is the moment. Equip them to work differently, to plan and make the future we need. Disasters are a challenge for us all to change. They're an opportunity for us all to change. This is the change we need now to make them ready. Investing in people, go back to the beginning, is one of the smartest investments you can make. It's the multiplier. It has a multiplier effect. It needs to be considered and assessed as that, as a value for money investment, not just in getting work done now, but in preparedness, in capacity for the future. So my is on behalf of the Housing Ministry to liaise also with the training organisations, education sector in the country to see how do we produce the next generation fit for purpose to build the cities and homes we need.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about the mic.
Maggie, no, sorry, I will say sorry for it. It's a technical problem at our end. Now I'll request Javed Ali Khan Sahab to summarize it, to wrap it up, and share his view as well.
Thank you very, very much. Indeed, it's a great pleasure to have really excellent panelists here on the podium. And we as a UN team will take cognizance of what has been proposed, and we will lead it to achieve really and address the challenges, particularly the youth, the young professionals and the retired people. So we will certainly make sure that this opportunity is created and is actualized. So we will certainly, and Dr. Sarup Lodi, we will count on you as well, and entire UN team will be with you to really craft out, and Raja Rehan Saab is also our key expert, and the way he has tried to unfold the recovery process or 3RF. It needs to be really actualized. It needs to be absorbed and mainstreamed. So this will be the biggest challenge. But after conclusion of the event, we will sit with the Secretary Housing, who is so committed, and we will take this process forward. So the entire UN team is gelled together, and still it is led by the housing sector is still led by Maggie and Raja Rehan. So I believe that we are in the safe hands and we will carry forward. So I think I have made my point because of the shortage of time. The next session is overdue. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, sir, actually, I will take 1 minute from you as well, because we have a question from the audience, from Engineer Naseem Qureshi Saab, Chief Engineer, PHA. Sir, his question is, how a government organization, especially Pakistan Housing Authority and FGEHA, can adopt these modifications when Park Engineering Council has not established updated codes, technical specifications, and criteria for hybrid construction, sir? This is
Let me tell this, because we have the pool of expertise since 2005. We are not really, it is not really ever wise to reinvent the wheel again and again. So let's pull our experience and the knowledge that we have gathered since 2005, and under the umbrella of the Secretary Housing, there has to be a big think tank, or there has to be a diverse representation in that think tank, from UN side, from academia, and from the NGOs and all other stakeholders. We similar model we are adopting in our UN system. We all have gelled, all agencies have gelled together. They are brainstorming and they are doing this. So similarly, if it is PHA or Nia Pakistan Housing Authority or any other agencies, they need to pool their expertise under one umbrella, and under that umbrella has to be a national response, a cohesive and inclusive response to the flood disasters, and the youth, the the architects, the planners, the civil society organizations, all diverse disciplines converge at one point and deliver. We develop that kind of a framework which can really respond to the challenges of 2022. It is a big challenge, but it is a big opportunity as well. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We are honored to have with us Federal Minister for Law and Justice, Mr. Azam Nazir Tarar. Welcome, sir, in this session. And now we will move towards our question and answer session. Please raise your hand if you want to ask any question from the panelists. Do we have any question from the floor? So by the time the questions are coming from the floor, I would like to ask about the green building codes for Pakistan. I suppose UN Habitat is also working on the subject of green building codes and guidelines. So, sir, how do you think green building guidelines can implement in Pakistan or prepared in Pakistan, because it's not here right now?
I will say that Green Building Code is coming, and the work on the Green Building Code is very much within the context of the Pakistan, the diverse ecosystems, the diverse climatic conditions. So we have, and I am happy that again Dr. Lodi and myself, we both have mainstreamed the process, right from indigenizing the entire concept of green building in Pakistan, considering the challenges that we cannot just adopt any model from across the world and try to apply this, but it's a very much homegrown and very much country-driven initiative. So this is what Shahid Saab has mentioned. It's the best example, my thinking, is the green building application of the green building practices. Application and tailoring to your need, tailoring to the climatic conditions, tailoring to the challenges that can come forth. So we did adopt, first of all, the 5 million housing program was that time was ongoing. So anywhere in the world, pilot has always led to a bigger national response. So that was a pilot that we picked up, and then on that pilot we developed the guidelines that was adopted by the government, that was adopted, and now we are working on the National Green Building Code as well as the Model Green Building Code. So that Model Green Building Code is probably coming just in a month's time. So and we all are also part of the engineering council of their expert group. So there will be a national green building code as well. So in process, we have developed couple of documents, and couple of documents are already on the way, which will create a very concrete and a very solid framework to achieving that goal. And that certainly, I believe, 2 million houses has to be built under the earthquake. And if we are not conscious, again we will increase GHG emission. So we the use of indigenous material, use of indigenous technologies will keep the GHG emission lower, and it will be zero carbon approach that we have adopted or we are promoting. So we will try that this concept is driven through and integrated and mainstreamed in all building construction processes that goes through the rehabilitation and recovery program. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we have a question from the.
Assalamualaikum. This is Heather. I want to ask a question to any person in the panel can respond. We have legislation in the country for housing and other things, but the problem comes when it is time for implementation. When we see Islamabad or Lahore and other cities, the urban sprawling is the biggest menace in the country since last decades, couple of decades, especially this last decade has urban sprawling has increased manifold. When we look around Islamabad, we can see the illegal housing societies are establishing. The law is there. We just see a notice in the newspaper from the district administration. My point is, how and when we will start implementation of our law, right, starting from the capital, which is the hub of everything. If we don't have implementation in the capital, what about the rest of the country? So my point is, implementation of law, when it will start, when we will have a central unit for controlling this housing problem. Thank you.
Okay. So urban, you want to say? Okay. So the urban sprawl actually is the result of the forward-looking planning approach. So since we are we are not catching up with the growth of population, unfortunately we are growing much faster, and the process of planning and is far behind. So that is why the urban sprawl is taking place. But now it is the age of innovation, digitization, and the innovative approaches need to be adopted. Satellite imageries and GIS mapping and all those we need to adopt the fast-paced mechanism. So urban sprawl is not really some kind of a very serious. It's a result of our mismanagement. So if we are better managed, that problem will be certainly addressed and will be solved. So we are very much positive, optimistic, and the recovery process also includes these dimensions of the challenges. If Raja Saab could really throw some light on this, that recovery process does include the urban sprawl dimension and the losses that we have that has been caused due to this hazard. So I believe that it is the result of our neglect, and that neglect will be overcome over the years as we advance the technologies and the solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Maggie, do you want to add something?
Just a short point. I've been coming to Pakistan since 2001. I'm a housing person, not a disaster person. Honestly, I'm shocked at what's happening with the cities and that it's driven by housing and that it's kind of, well, it's a construction boom or it's GDP or it's economic growth. But look at the homes you're making, the cities you're making, the traffic you're making, and not just that, but the society, honestly speaking, that you're making. And I think we have to not just see housing as real estate, and it's not only regulation, but I think it really needs a rethink at many levels in society. Okay, you've had a burst, if you like, of growth, but hopefully there's a chance to learn from where it's going and a chance to take pause and see what the future may look like in 50 years if you continue, for example. I leave it there.
Thank you, Maggie. So, do we have any other question from the hall? Yes, please, sir.
I will really agree with what Maggie has said, and all our distinguished panelists mentioned that we need not to reinvent the wheels. We do have laws, we do have rules, regulations in place. They needs to be seen, reviewed in the contemporary context. My question specifically is regarding the National Conservation Strategy. Javed Ali Khan Sahab will bear me out that he and a very wonderful friends around worked on it in late 90s, and we came up with the 12 areas of national conservation, which was documented in the National Conservation Strategy. According to those strategy, Pakistan Environmental Protection Councils were put in place, environmental laws were put in place. So at this point of time, what you really see in the backdrop of these hydrometeorological disasters, how those areas can be co-opted once again, reviewed into the right context at this point of time.
Thank you very much. So, Shahzad Saab, actually, sir, let me be really, take the opportunity to inform you that National Conservation Strategy, when Pakistan developed and presented in 1992 in the first Earth Summit, this was applauded by the world, by the globe, that it is the right framework and it is the right initiative, or we give the policy perspective in the right direction. So that was the document. But what happened actually, that in 1992 there were many principles that were adopted, that kind of a polluter pays principle, as well as ODA, 0.5% of the ODA had to flow through the developed countries to the developing countries to fund for the initiatives that we had put down as our goals in the National Conservation Strategy. But what happened, that money never came, that model or that instrument didn't actualize its objective, and no resource was generated and passed on to the countries which did commit and which did make effort to move forward in the right direction. So what happened, that initiative still stands and has really paid off in many ways, that Pakistan's strategic direction is still very, very in the right direction. But it is only the lack of resources that is keeping us behind to catch up and to move forward in that direction. But we are still much better off, because we are, just imagine, we are only producing 0 point or less than 1% of GHG emission. So that is our success. that we have controlled the GHG emission and we are not emitting so high as it could be if we were not conscious of any taking a wrong direction. So we are from policy perspective, we are still right. But vulnerability, like Raja Saab said, it is a hazard. It is beyond the control of any country or beyond the control of any nation. So we are the worst victim. We stood first in the rank of the vulnerable countries. Then we always remained within 1 to 10. Now we are 5. So in the middle of those. So this is our biggest challenge. We need to rethink within the context that how to survive. What is the best and most economical way and most effective way to be more effective, to be more vibrant in developing our instrument to address these challenges which are never going to go away. It can be much and much more serious because the climate change is becoming worse and worse and worse. So we have to really think and get ready ourselves. The resources are also, but fortunately, one model that that UN Habitat has adopted is a win-win proposition between the developed and developing countries. What we are doing is that Korea is reducing their GHG emission in Pakistan, and it is not a loan, it is not a debt. What is happening that for 5 million each year we are generating through this CER, climate, and that investment is going to green technologies. So we will promote, we will work more on this, and that's a good opportunity for future.
Thank you so much, sir. Do you have any other question from the hall? Yes, please, sir.
Assalamu alaikum and buenos dias, especialmente a mi amigo Istuha Shalari, the Federal Secretary of Housing and Works. I am thankful indeed and honored to be part of this gathering, and special thanks to him and gratitude that he brought this Expo in Convention Center, and special thanks and regards to his team that fully dedicated and making this event a successful and colorful. At the same time, I am thankful to the UN agencies heads and the concerned sitting here and giving a very useful information to the audience. And I, being the world explorer and golfer, have played in 27 countries and nearly 34 cities of the world, starting from Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and other countries, especially in Argentina. Indeed, I am honored and pleasured. I am not a scientist, I am not an environmentalist, but I am thankful to all of you that making Pakistan safer, healthier and cleaner. And that's it. And thanks to everybody. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite Mr. Iftikhar Ali Shalwani to come on the stage for the concluding remarks.
Assalamu alaikum. A very good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to express my highest gratitude to all the enlightened panelists who have come from various international agencies, starting from, of course, UN Habitat. I'm really grateful that they patronized this Housing Expo from the day one, rather, to this today, our last day, and the World Bank, and of course, IOM, Aga Khan Foundation. And so this morning, amongst us, we are very lucky that we have the Federal Law Minister, Mr. Azam Nazir Tawar, amongst us. Thank you so much, sir, for your presence. And I think one of the questions which was raised, I think the first question that why we do not have, we have, sir, so many laws, especially in the housing, especially in every sector, multi-sectoral laws in every ministry, but why we lack in implementation, enforcement. I think Minister for Law will really enlighten us and dilate upon that topic. But let me tell you, as a saying by Lord Byron, which I always remember, that any country's laws are as strong as their people's will to see them enforced. We see that in many other countries. You don't need a policeman at every spot to enforce the law. It is the people's will which enforces the law. Unfortunately, how long we're going to see our agricultural fields turning into housing estates, and why we have not been able to stop it. Of course, population is a problem that we are all facing. But then, sir, one of the themes of this expo, that we have to stop the horizontal development. We have to go for building upwards. And that is one of the main themes that we have adopted. And I'm really grateful to Islamabad Chamber of Commerce here, who are our partners, we have signed an MOU. And this whole international expo is a model of a public-private partnership that we have done an international housing expo without a single penny from the government exchequer. So that's all, sir, we have done, and I'm so grateful to the Prime Minister who approved this idea of International Housing Expo. I'm grateful to the whole Federal Cabinet, the Law Minister, the Climate Change Minister who came on the first day, and of course I'm grateful to our Housing Minister, Mr. Maulana Wase, who approved, who always encouraged us, who always gave us strength. And unfortunately, he had to be in Quetta today. He couldn't come. But of course, he always patronized, and through his policy of implementation that we have been able to do this. I'm so grateful to all the panelists who are here. And sir, now I'll request the Honorable Law Minister to please come on the stage and enlighten us with his views. Thank you, sir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and very good morning to all of you. Well, in the presence of such a celebrated panel, I find myself so naive to say something on this technical topic. I'm honored that I'm part of this discussion, and my apologies for reaching late, but I could have been benefited from the thoughts shared by our panelists. However, we start our topic with the question which was raised from the floor, that why, in spite of presence of multiple laws, I would say, the authorities are not in a position or unable to implement the same and to control or regulate the housing, growth of housing in an irregular manner. I think Shalwani Saab answered it in a very apt way. I've been a practicing lawyer for many years, for almost 3 decades. What I have learned from my experience in this part of the world is that it's irrelevant how stringent laws you can enact. And we are very good at enacting laws, multiple laws, one after another. That also spoils the issue, actually, as a matter of fact, because the multiple laws create confusions, the agencies overlapping things also create confusions and problems. To me, as a student law, it's not important that how severe the law or its consequences are. It's actually a certainty in the mind of the people, as Shilwani Saab said. It's the will of people, or otherwise it is the strength of a regulator, which sends a very strong message that whosoever will violate the law will have to pay the price. And unfortunately, in many parts of the world, this element lacks when it comes to the implementing laws. Yes, as a citizen of Pakistan, as a son of a tiller of the land, I also, it scares me as a matter of fact, the way we are actually converting the green lands into housing schemes and converting it into brown land. I remember when I was a young kid, I grew up in lush green fields in a rural area. And then I moved to Lahore, where I completed my education. Now, when I go back to those areas even, I hardly find any place across the roads, especially, I mean, we are so good at encroaching the road networks with unregulated activity, I would say. And this is one of the major issues. Rightly said by our friend Maggie, thank you so much putting such effort in Pakistan for 20 years almost. You are a true friend of Pakistan, and we need this kind of advice and then dedication to transform this advice into reality. Business activity must be there. Our constitution also provides certain directives and rights are created by the constitution and laws. And housing is also one of the areas where the laws also mandate the court or mandate the state or direct it that the state is also responsible to cater for that area, and it's everywhere in the world. But it has to be a regulated activity. It is for the good of people, and we have to strike a balance with such kind of pressure of the growing population. We should not be actually turning our eyes that in 20, 30 years down the road, what would be the situation. And for that matter, I must appreciate that being part of the federal government, I'm so proud that the Ministry of Housing and Works took the initiative and organized this expo, which is also a platform where the relevant stakeholders, the experts can sit together as we are seeing today, and they can actually come up with certain solutions, some recommendations, some good suggestions for the government to formulate a policy in this regard. Shalwani Saab, the question which you asked, actually, it has been answered twice, but I believe we have to be very careful, especially when we talk about Islamabad. Islamabad is the capital territory. Islamabad has manifold benefits when it comes to legislation and its enforcement, because there is only one agency in Islamabad, which is the capital territory government, ICT, Islamabad Capital Territory, and they have, I would say, under the law, the entire authority to regulate this city, be that it may be the housing or the traffic planning or the environment laws enforcement or whatsoever, whatever you call. It's not a kind of a huge area, a large area like the Punjab or Sindh, having the far-flung rural areas and big cities like Lahore, Multan, Faisalabad. It's just one territory, 20 kilometers square, I would say. So this should be a model for entire Pakistan. It should look like a capital, and capitals, as we have seen, the most of the capital, I mean, it's another debate, but this was a purpose-built capital. So it is well designed. The people who conceived it, we must appreciate them that they did their best in 50s and 60s. It is like the next generations or generations thereafter that we ruined that idea. And we must rethink about it. We must sit together. At least for a future course, we can go ahead and we can make this city a model, or if not model, a livable city for our next generations, for posterity, for people who would live there after us. Thank you once again. I would not try to take much time because it's not my subject. I'm honored that I've been invited. Congratulations to the partners, the Islamabad Chamber of Commerce, the Ministry of Housing, and the other. And thank you so much, the distinguished panelists, for sparing your time and coming here. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया जी. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I will request if you please stay on the stage to present shields to the panelists. Thank you very much. So first I will invite Mr. Raja Rehan Arshad. Sir, please come on the stage and take your shield. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite Ms. Nusrat Nasab. Ma'am, please come on the stage and take your shield. Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Ms. Mio Sato, CEO, IOM. Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Ms. Maggie Stephenson, Technical Advisor, UNOPS. Thank you. Now I would invite Mr. Shahid Saeed, CEO, Indus Art Trust. Thank you. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Mr. Javed Ali Khan, Habitat Program Manager. Thank you. Now I would like to invite moderator of the panel discussion, Mr. Zahid Naseem Khattak. Thank you very much, sir. Now I would like to invite Mr. Shehzad Naseem Tarar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Works. Thank you very much. Now I would request all the panelists to please stay on the stage. So now I would like to invite Mr. Iftikhar Ali Shalwani to take the shield from the minister. Thank you. And now I request all the panelists and the honorable guests to please stay on the stage for the group picture. Thank you very much, everyone. Now with this, we will close this session. Thank you.